Hello. Hello, hello. Hello from the future. Let me just say my comments here. Put this here. Yay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me see who's here. Patricia, Yoga Cabral, Mari, Jéssica, Lime, Felipe, Larissa, Chai, Bella. Hello, guys. Fabiane, Dee. How are you guys going? Thais, Chi, Paula, Maria Laura. Yay, good to see you all here. Hello, Cristiano. Hello, Fernanda. Hello, Rebecca. Perfect time. Yes, 9:17. I'm a little bit obsessed with time, to be honest. Yeah. Maria Laura saying good night. Good evening, Australia. Hello, Stephanie. Yay, so good to see you guys here. Hello, Bruno. Just 1 minute and then we're gonna get it started. So how's everyone going today? Are you guys good? Where are you at the moment? Yes, finish my song. Let me just stop here. My warm-up song. Awesome. Hello, Fabi. Hello, Tali. All right, guys. So hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Before I start, let me know in the comments where you guys at the moment. So I love knowing where you're watching from. So I can see people from Brazil, people in Canberra, people in Canada. Yay, I am in Sydney today, Sydney, Australia. So I have people in Melbourne as well. I love knowing about the different time zones and everything. And also that's the reason why I like saving my lives, because we have people from all over the world, which I think it's really cool. And I believe that's the power of internet, right? We can connect to people and all of that. So people from São Paulo, people talking from Maceió, Brazil, Sydney, Australia as well. Yes. So here in Sydney, it's rainy. It's Wednesday morning, so now it's 9:20 in the morning. And today is the first day of our English Confidence Week. So today is our lesson 1, and we're gonna talk about listening. So today we're gonna talk about how you can improve your listening skills. So because it's our first lesson, I'm gonna start with an introduction. And I know there are lots of people who are here for the first time as well. So I just wanna say hello and welcome. And I wanna start with this introduction. So what we're gonna be doing this week, what type of lessons we're gonna have, why am I doing this, who am I, and all of the questions that you guys may have. So just a little, like a short introduction. I would say that I decided to do this week because I know we are still in quarantine, right? So like, depending on where you are at the moment, I have a lot of students in Brazil at the moment. Bruno just commented 4 months ago he was in Australia, but now he's stuck in Brazil. So I know in some countries the situation, it's not the best at the moment. Thankfully, here in Australia, things are starting to get better, and in some other countries as well. But I know we are still getting used to this new online life and all of that. So I truly believe that English opens doors. So I started to learn English because I wanted to travel. I wanted to connect to people from all over the world. I wanted to make friends as well. And I think we can definitely use this time where you have kind of less activities, or if you are stuck somewhere, to improve and to focus on your English. So that's why I decided to do this week of live sessions. So we're gonna have live classes for 7 days. And today is our first lesson. So starting today, which is Wednesday morning in Sydney, Australia, until next Wednesday, we're gonna be talking about all the aspects of your English. So I'll give you so many tips and I'll teach you some techniques of things that you can do to improve your English, okay? My idea here, it's not to give you English classes. Even though I am an English teacher, I don't want to give you English classes because we have over like 11,000 people here. So it's impossible for me to cover everything. And that's not my goal. So my goal, I am a neuro-English specialist. So what I do, I use neuroscience to help my students with the English confidence. So if you've studied English before, or if you are studying English at the moment, I'm gonna teach you how to be more confident with your English and how you can keep improving your English even if you are at home. So how you can keep improving your English by yourself. So you can have more freedom, you can have more independence to learn the techniques and then just use it by yourself, right? So you don't have to just wait for me to come here and say like, hey guys, this is how you use the verb get. Like, that's not my goal. And also because there are lots of good content on the internet, on YouTube already. So I'm gonna teach you how to use the material that it's out there. So there are lots of good content online. I'm gonna teach you how to go there and focus and get that, and then you can improve your English, okay? So I just wanna clarify that here because I'm not gonna give you like content classes. I'm not gonna teach you like grammar or structure, or we're not gonna have like a preposition lesson. We're gonna have classes about techniques and strategies that you can use to improve your English, cool? So today we're gonna start talking about listening techniques, and then during this week, I'm gonna skip only Sunday because it's Sunday and I don't wanna work on Sunday, to be honest. So during 7 days, from today until next Wednesday, we're gonna have 7 live lessons, and every day is gonna be a different topic. So today we're gonna talk only about listening techniques. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about reading, and then we're gonna talk about writing. I'm not gonna remember the order right now, but I posted so you can just save, you can follow up, and it's gonna be every day at the same time, okay? So every day at 9:17 Sydney time, because I love the number 17, that's why. All right, so this is pretty much what we're gonna be doing. And everything is gonna be based on neuroscience strategies. So if you are new here, if this is the first live that you're watching, I love giving real life examples. So I like telling the stories and sharing examples so you can really understand in real life what I'm saying. And I also love explaining why things work. So as a scientist, I graduated in computer science, so I'm pretty much like a nerd. If you don't know my story yet, I'll share with you in another moment. But as a nerd, I don't want to just learn the English. I don't want to know, for example, oh, use this verb to do that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is boring. Like, I don't want to learn English this way. So I love understanding what's happening. So always when I'm teaching something, I like explaining what's happening in your brain, why things work like that, because I believe when you understand why, it gives you more motivation, right? So we're gonna talk a lot more about these things as well. Awesome, so let's get it started. And today is our last lesson number 1, and it's how to improve your listening. And why I decided to start with the listening skills, because when you think about English, we tend to focus on grammar. And this is like a huge mistake that I see in 95% of English students. So if you don't know me yet, I am originally from Brazil. I am from São Paulo. I was born in Mogi das Cruzes, but I lived in Santa Isabel, which is like a very tiny city close to Guarulhos Airport. So I speak Portuguese as my first language. And then I started studying English when I was 11 years old, and I studied English for many years until I finished my English course. So I learned the grammar, I learned the structure, I knew how to form the sentences, I knew how to answer my test. I was a good student. Like, as I mentioned, I am a nerd. So I'm quite proud of being a nerd. So I did good in my English class, okay? I was not there for fun. I was there because I wanted to learn English, because I always wanted to live in Canada. So my big dream in life, since I was 11 years old, like a kid, I told everyone that I wanted to go to Canada. And I knew that I needed English for that. So that's why I started to study English. And I thought at that moment when I started studying English, I thought that going to school, is studying and doing my homework and getting my certificate, that will be English, right? Like, yes, now I can speak English. Now I can go to Canada. So I did that for many years. I was like going to my English course like twice a week, and for 1 hour do my homework. And I was okay with that. Like, it was like, I didn't like it that much. I didn't like English in the beginning. I was much more like a mathematics brain in the family, while my sister, she was the English brain in the family, like, definitely. But for me, it was more like, okay, I'm just doing this because I want to go to Canada. It's not like my favorite thing in life. But I did my homework. I used to be a good student, pay attention, get like good scores in my test. And I was like, fine, I'm doing this perfectly. Like, I'm gonna get my certificate, I'm gonna speak English, I'm gonna go to Canada. So that was my perfect plan. And then I studied English for many years. You know, when you study and then you stop. You study and then you stop. You study and you stop. Anyway, I finished. I got my certificate. I was like, post-advanced certificate. I was like, ooh, now I'm ready, right? And then I got, I got another job in São Paulo, which was in a multinational company. And I had to speak English. And then I was freaking out. I was like, I don't think I know English at all. And then I was like, I've been studying English for so many years, and I don't feel confident to speak. And I was like, what is going on? So people used to talk to me. I used to participate in like phone calls with people from Germany, people from United States, and I didn't understand them. And I couldn't speak and I couldn't answer. And I was so frustrated. So I decided to start this week with listening, because listening is the first step of your confidence. Because if you don't understand what the other person is saying, you're going to freak out, pretty much. Like, if you don't know what the other person is saying, there is no way you can answer, because you're gonna answer the wrong question. You know, like, how I'm gonna say something if I didn't understand what they are saying? And then we just get in the loop, right? It's like, oh, like, what am I doing? So that was my first experience with real English. It was at work when I was still living in Brazil. It was in this multinational company. And then I was working a project. I was working with IT at the time. And then I was just like, what should I do? Like, when they, you know, like when you open your calendar, like your Outlook calendar, and then you have these meetings. And when I saw I had like an English call with people from Germany or United States or whatever, I used to have stomach aches. Like, if you've watched any of my lives before, you know that I used to have stomach aches, because I tell everyone that. And I was not ready. And in my certificate, I was like, post-advanced English, but I couldn't speak. I was like, fine, like, I know English in theory, but what should I do with that now, right? So I started to study neuroscience, and I was like, okay, English is not the problem, because my English is here, right? I finished my course for a reason. I've studied English before for a reason. So my problem is here, like, something's going on. I want to understand that. And then I started to study everything that I could about neuroscience, about how my brain works, about how we create memories, about public speaking, about confidence, about leadership, and I loved it. And that's when I actually started to improve in Portuguese and in English, because I started to apply that for my job. So in the beginning, my idea was not really like to use that specifically for English. I just wanted to stop this feeling at work. I just wanted to feel more comfortable to be there, to do my job, right? English was just like on my way, and I just wanted to be a little bit more comfortable with that. So I did it. I started to work. I got like a little bit more confident with that until the point that I actually moved to Canada. And then when I moved to Canada, I had another shock. I moved to Canada in 2016. And then when I got there, then again, I was like, I was super confident. I was like, okay, now I can do that because I was working English. So now I'm a little bit better. So I think now I can do that. And then I moved to Canada and I was living in Toronto. If you are in Toronto, I'm saying hi to Toronto. I love Canada so much. And when I got there, Toronto is like a multicultural city, right? So I had my problem number two. People speak English with different accents. And then I went to Tim Hortons on my first day and I couldn't understand a single word. I was just like, what is going on, right? Like, why I cannot use my English anymore? Why I don't understand these people? And again, that's the proof that listening is the first step for your English confidence. Because I went to Tim Hortons, I was just trying to grab a coffee, and then the girl, she had like the more like Indian accent. Her background was from India. And then she started to ask me so many questions like, what size? Would you like some cream? Would you like some sugar? And I was like, I just want a coffee, you know, like, don't ask me so many questions. And I was feeling so bad, like so bad, because for me, I was ready. And then I got there and I realized that I was not. So if you don't understand what the other person is saying, your English confidence is like nothing. It's like zero, because you're gonna be like, oh, what is going on in here? So imagine that you are just like in real life situations. You want to make friends, you want to live a life in another country, you want to apply for jobs, like job interviews. Imagine if you don't understand what the other person is saying. If the person, imagine you are in a job interview, the person is asking you a question and then you don't understand, and then you just smile and agree. It's like, uh-huh, oh yes, I used to be this person. And then my friends used to look at me and say like, yes, what, Alini? Like, I'm asking you a question. And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't understand. I was like, you know, like so many situations, like so like shame on me. Seriously, like I've been through so many situations, and I'm pretty sure that most of you guys have been through that situations as well. It's like smile and agree, right? It's like yes, of course. It's like just smile and agree, pretty much. So I was thinking about it and I was like, I don't want to live like that. I really want to have a conversation. I want to feel like I can be myself in English, that I don't have to create another personality. You know, like if I like talking in Portuguese, I want to be able to talk in English and all of that. So the first step to feel confident with your English, it's definitely listening, okay? So this is why we're talking about this topic today. So what can you do about it? So how can you actually listen to people? How can you improve your listening? Because if you think, for example, if we're thinking about speaking, creating the words, it's actually something that you can control, right? Because you are speaking, you are thinking about the words, you are kind of creating the content. But listening, it's not quite something that you can control. You know, sometimes we just hear something and then we just think like, oh, I wish I haven't heard that. Like there's no way to not hear it anymore, you know, because we just have ears. So we just listen to things. Sometimes we don't want to, but we listen to it anyway. You know, sometimes I just wish that I didn't listen to a few things, but I do. So it's like, so what can we do about it if we don't really control our ears, right? So I'm gonna say that the first step to improve your listening, it's called active listening. you need to practice the way that you listen as if you mean it, as if you want to listen. So it's kind of if you want to try to listen the person in purpose. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So the first step for you to listen to someone, it's actually we stop thinking about other stuff, pretty much. You know, the worst feeling is when you are in a conversation with someone and you know the person is not listening to you, right? So if I'm gonna be very sexist now, if you are a girl and if you are married, you know when your husband is not listening to you. It's just a joke. Sorry, guys, I'm not really like that. But if you are just in a conversation, even like with your friends or with your family, if you are in a conversation, you know if the other person is not listening to you. And then you just look at them and you're like, listen to me, right? Mainly if you are angry, you just look like, listen to me. And then you start saying something. If you are a teacher, for example, I am a teacher. I know when my students are not listening to me. I know when their body's there, but their head is like in the moon, right? It's like just the body's there, but their mind is far away, far, far, far away. So the first step to listen to someone, it's actually being present in the conversation. And this is not something that you're gonna do from today to tomorrow. You're not gonna do this like in a few hours. You need to practice, okay? Because I believe that in the era that we're living at the moment, like the digital era, the information era, we have so much information that on one hand it's really helpful, but on the other hand it can be quite distracting. So sometimes we are in a conversation but we are thinking about 20 things at the same time. So we are thinking about what we're gonna answer, we are thinking about what we're gonna do next, we are thinking about what we're gonna have for lunch, we are thinking about the laundry that we have to put when we go back home. So we are there physically, but mentally we are not there. So when we talk about neuroscience, the way our brain works, it's like a monkey mind. There's even a concept that it's called the monkey mind. And what is the monkey mind? The monkey mind is pretty much when your brain doesn't stop. So you are always jumping from one topic to the other. And how can you improve that? You do that practicing, right? So step by step. So when you are having a conversation in English, stop, look at the person and listen. Like try to focus 100% on that conversation. And in the beginning, it is going to be hard. Like I'm being honest with you, it's going to be hard because you are not used to that. You are not used to focus on the conversation. It's pretty much like practicing your focus and focus on that person. So if someone is talking to you like we are now, right? So if you are watching this live session, watch the live session. Don't be like checking your messages. Don't be like cooking at the same time. Don't be like, for example, just walking around and then watching the live session. If you really want to focus on that, if you really want to get the content, if you really want to get the most out of this topic, out of this lesson, is stop what you're doing. This is your first English exercise, your first listening exercise. Is stop what you're doing and pay attention. Like, hey, I'm here. Like, I'm here. I am speaking English with you. So this is already a listening exercise, right? So if you are already here and you are not here, that's a sign that you have monkey mind, right? And most of us, we have. So how can we change it? We can change it in a way that we can actually practice a little bit every day. So if you are talking to someone, stop everything else that you're doing and look to the person and pay attention. Reading their lips really helps as well. If you are face to face with someone, try to read their lips and then you can actually pay attention on the words that they say, okay? So first step ever to improve your listening is active listening. Be there and listen to the person. Focus on the person and stop thinking about the future or about the past. Be present. So this is gonna help you a lot. It's gonna help you to feel less anxious. It's gonna help you to feel less nervous if you don't understand what the person is saying. And this is gonna help you to start focusing, like pretty much practice your focus on English. So this is the first step, active listening. Okay, does it make sense? Send me in the comments and then I'll go for step number 2. But let me know. I saw some comments about the monkey minds. Peixe Flores is asking where I live. I live in Sydney, Australia. So I'm living in the future, pretty much. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of June at 9:43 in the morning. So I'm pretty much living in the future. I always try to translate in my mind, but I'm pretty sure that it doesn't have that. Exactly. So Renato said a very important point here. Guys, you need to stop translating. That's very serious. And I'm going to tell you why. And I used to do that before as well. So when we are translating something, it's actually harder because, for example, now, as a teacher, as a neuro-English specialist, sometimes I have to do like, not that I have to do, but I get some offers to do like interpreter. So I say that being an interpreter is one of the most difficult things that you can do as a bilingual, because you have to think in 2 languages at the same time. So this is one of the hardest things ever. And if you are learning English and you are still thinking in your first language and you're trying to translate, of course, in the beginning, if you are like more like a beginner level, I would say until like pre-intermediate level, I agree with that. I agree with learning English in your first language because you can start creating some patterns and some connections, and this is gonna help you to remember. The problem is when you pass the pre-intermediate level and you keep doing that, because 2 languages, they are never the same. Even if you think similar language, for example, Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, they are all similar language based on Latin language, but they are still very different. So if you try to think about 2 languages as if they were the same thing, if they were like a mirror, you're gonna get frustrated because it's not. So when you get to the point that you cannot find a connection between both languages, your brain is gonna get lazy and your brain is not gonna understand that they are 2 different languages, because your whole life you've been doing associations. So if you find exceptions, you're gonna get angry about it. You're gonna be like, why? I don't understand. You know, and it's kind of if your brain's gonna block that topic. That happened to me because I am a logical person. I am 100% logical. So I like mathematics, I like patterns, I like things that make sense. That's why I used to be good at grammar, right? But not good at speaking, because when we are learning grammar, there is kind of a structure, and we're gonna have a class here during this week only about grammar. So I'm not gonna give you any spoiler, but grammar is kind of a structure, right? So if you are a logical person, you like grammar because you like having the patterns, because you kind of know what to do. But once you go for real life, once you go for real English, they don't follow the book. And it's pretty much like expressions, phrasal verbs, slang, different accents. And that's why we freak out. If you only focus on grammar, your confidence level is gonna go down instead of going up. Okay, and we're gonna talk more about that on the grammar lesson. But translating, it definitely doesn't help, because translating, it's one of the worst things that you can do. It's one of the hardest things that you can do, because you have to think about 2 languages at the same time, and it gets pretty confusing. So ideally, what you should do is actually learn English with English definitions. So for example, if I see a word in English that I don't know, what I do, I Google it, but not in Google Translator. I put the word that I don't know and I write down meaning. And then I read the meaning of the word and I understand the word in English. Sometimes I don't even know how to translate the opposite. Sometimes I know some English words and then I'm speaking Portuguese with someone and I seriously don't know the word in Portuguese. Like I don't know the translation because I learned that word in English. I'll give you another example. I went to Brazil for holidays last year in September. And here in Australia, I started to attend Hillsong Church, and I love church music. So I listen to worship music. I sing in my house. It's great for pronunciation. It's great for English. Music, it's like awesome. So because I started to go to church in Australia, I learned everything that I know and all the songs in English because I'm in Australia. In Australia, they speak English, right? And then I went to Brazil and I went to the same church, Hillsong in São Paulo. But then it's exactly the same structure, but all the songs are in Portuguese. And I got so confused because I knew English, but I didn't, I didn't know Portuguese. And then I was trying to read the songs on the screen, like the lyrics in Portuguese. And even though Portuguese is my first language, I couldn't. So I couldn't sing the songs in Portuguese because I learned them in English. So I used to read the first phrase and then the second one in my head, I was already singing in English. And I was like, oh, I don't care anymore. I'm gonna sing in English. Like, I think God is a polyglot. Like, I don't think he would mind if I'm still singing in English. I think he will listen to me. And I was like, that's fine. So it's a very good example of why we shouldn't translate because I learned the songs in English and now I cannot like unlearn it or, you know, like in Portuguese, it was really confusing for me, even though Portuguese is my first language because that's how I learned. So I really encourage you to actually learn English, understand the meaning instead of translating, okay? Cool, let me just check the time. Still have 30 minutes. So let me just check your comments. Yes, exactly. The most important is to communicate. And then guys, if you compare, for example, like confidence and grammar, because we always focus on grammar. If you have a lot of grammar, but you don't have confidence, that's what happened to me. You don't communicate. Even though if you know a lot of grammar, you don't communicate. If you have less grammar, less structure, but you have more confidence, you can still communicate. Even if you make mistakes, and you will make mistakes, people can still understand you, even if your grammar is not perfect, right? So it's more like finding the balance. Yes. Exactly, we get nervous. We are human beings and that's fine. Listen to someone talking to me, yes. Awesome. Perfect, let me, I realized that doing isn't good when I started to learn German because it's pretty different to make a phrase, even to say. Exactly, and when you're learning German, German is very similar to English because English is a Germanic language. But then at the same time, some words are very similar, but some other words are very different and the pronunciation is very different. So you need to be very careful about trying to translate to German as well. Awesome, so let's keep going. Auri Tavares is asking what dictionary I use. I don't have a dictionary actually, like I don't prefer any dictionary. I just Google the word. So I go on Google and then I type the word and I just write meaning in front of the word. And then Google gives me the meaning instead of the translation, okay? I just don't translate. I like checking the meaning of the word and then I understand the word. Because if I translate, I forget. 5 minutes after, I don't remember the word anymore because it was like automatic, right? But if I understand the meaning of the word, I remember after and then I can use and I can check the pronunciation as well. Because sometimes I don't know the pronunciation and then I just check the pronunciation on Google. Perfect. So let's go for step number 2. Just checking. Okay. So step number 1 is very clear, right? So active listening. And then, of course, like you are going to listen actively, but you're gonna pay attention in what the person is saying, right? But what do you gonna pay attention? So what you pay attention, right? It's like, should I pay attention on the whole conversation? Should I pay attention on every single word? Should I pay attention on the accent? Should I pay attention on the pronunciation? So what do you guys usually pay attention when you're talking to someone? When someone is talking to you, what do you try to get from the conversation? Let me know. What do you focus on? Usually my students, what they do, I always tell my students to focus on your personal goal. So if your goal today is to improve your pronunciation, for example, if you are already like an advanced student and if you want to improve your pronunciation, when you listen to someone, you are going to listen to the pronunciation. If your goal is to get more vocabulary, you're gonna pay more attention in the vocabulary. And I see a lot of, I knew you're gonna answer that. So you're getting like vocabulary, context, pay attention in the message, keywords, in the meaning, in the context, in the topic, in the subject. Yes, that's the first thing. And that's what we learn in English courses as well. But I'm gonna tell you a secret. Not always. So you don't always have to focus on the context because it really depends. It depends on what you want to improve. So before you even start to learn English, the main thing that you have to focus on is what you want to improve. And of course, if you want to understand, if you just want to have a conversation, if you're not trying to get anything from the conversation, you should definitely focus on key words, because the keywords are the ones that are going to help you to understand what the other person is saying. So if you're focused, so let's talk about different topics now, okay? This is not wrong. This is totally right. Your answers, you should definitely focus on the content, but not only that. So if your focus is on improving your confidence, and that's why we are here during this week, it's English Confidence Week, you should focus on key words. And now this is quite a cliche, right? We study this in English courses, like, yes, you should focus on the message, you should focus, you should look for keywords. But what are the keywords? How do you find the keywords? Answer me, send me on the comments. How do you find keywords? You know, when you are reading and then you have a book and then you have a highlighter and then you just get the highlighter and your teacher says you need to highlight the keywords, and then you just highlight 5 lines, you just highlight the whole paragraph. We were not really trained to find keywords, right? So imagine if you're doing the same thing in listening, like, oh yeah, find the keywords. And then the person is talking to you and you're like, where are the keywords? What should I focus on? So how do you find the keywords? Pay attention on the contents, deny the accent. The accent calls attention, yeah. Pay attention in the keywords. So what are the keywords? Everyone's talking about keywords. How do you find the keywords? I can keep in touch with someone. Okay, so nouns and verbs and subjects. Oh wow, so technical. You are an English teacher, right? English teacher Leon. That's such an English teacher answer. It's like nouns and verbs, adverbs. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna simplify that to you because I'm not really like, I'm not a big fan of grammar anymore. Yeah, so how you can find the keywords? Let's yes, yes. Like your Instagram is English teacher Liam. So I was like, that's such an English teacher answer, like nouns and verbs, adverbs, and pronouns and all of that. I don't miss studying that, to be honest. Wow, conjunction. Wow, I'm missing like the connectors and all of that. All right, so how do you find the keywords? Yeah, not easy as a question, exactly. So how do we explain that, right? So in English, I like to say there are two types of words: content words and empty words or function words. So how does it work? Content words are the words with meaning. Okay, so any words that have like a meaning, they help you to understand the sentence. For example, house, dog, English, lights. These are content words. What are the content words? Nouns, verbs, in a more technical way, okay? But I'm not here to be very technical. So content words, words that have a strong meaning, like they have a content inside themselves, pretty much. So content words. These content words are your keywords. So these are the words that you are looking for. Words with meaning, words with content, okay? So these are your keywords. What are the other words? The other group of words are the empty words, or what we call the function words. This other group of words, they don't really have a meaning itself. They are usually connectors, prepositions. They are usually some other words that help you to sound more fluent. They help you to connect the content words, so you can sound more fluent, and then it helps you to make sense, right? It helps you to sound more like a native speaker. If you don't know a lot of function words, that doesn't really matter in terms of communication, because if you know the content words, you can still pass the message. So in listening, if you understand the content words, you can still get the message, even if you don't get the function words, because they are there just to connect the ideas, okay? So your keywords are the content words. So first step to improve your listening, focus on active listening. Second step, what are you gonna listen to? So you are going to listen to the content words. These words are your keywords. Once you connect, once you get the content words of what the other person is saying, you can guess what they are trying to say, right? So if they say, for example, Aline, I don't even know how to think in an example. If I say, for example, Aline, Sydney, Aline, Sydney, 2 years, maybe? If I say like, Aline, Sydney, 2 years. I don't need the whole sentence, but I can guess that Aline lives in Sydney for 2 years, right? So I can, if I get like the main content words, I can guess the meaning. And of course, it's not gonna be like 100% accurate, but it definitely helps. So you can actually get the idea, and then you can ask the person if that's what you understood, if it's correctly, and you can confirm information. Cool? So that's the second step. It's actually look for your content words. And then you're gonna do this exercise, right? Everything that you are watching, everything that you are listening to, music, TV shows, movies, try to get the content words, okay? And then try to get them and try to practice how to find the content words and how to be 100% present in the active listening process. Cool? Questions about steps number 1 and number 2, and then I can go for the last step. And I'll drink water. I'm also recording this live on my computer, because I'm gonna try to upload it on YouTube after, so you can watch. I don't know how to use YouTube yet. That's why I'm not trying to do any lives on YouTube. Yeah, because the chances of going wrong are really big. So once I actually have a YouTube channel now. I'm gonna save the video. I'm recording in Zoom just because I know how to use Zoom, so it's a little bit safer for me to use it. But once I learn how to use YouTube, I'll let you know, and then I'll post all this week, all the lives I'm gonna post there. Awesome. So, am I saying that I don't understand the second step? So the second step is look for the content words, look for the keywords. You don't have to get every single word of what the other person is saying, okay? You just need to look for the big words, the full meaning words, and then you can try to guess what the other person is saying. Awesome. Step number 3, and that was a huge problem for me when I moved to Canada. So step number 3, practice listening to different accents, because English is an universal language. So billions of people speak English around the world, and most of them are not native speaker. Most people speak English as a second language. There are more ESL speakers, I would say, there are more people that speak English as the second language compared to the first language, okay? So the chances are that when you move to another country, or even if you are in your home country and you're gonna have contact to someone who actually speaks English, chances are that these people, they have different accents themselves. So accent is not a problem, okay? I have an accent, and my accent is very unique. I always tell people that I have an alien accent, because my accent is a mix of all the experiences that I have. Because I've studied American English my whole life, and then I studied British English for a few months when I was working. So I did like cultura inglesa. If you know cultura inglesa, if you're from Brazil, you know that they teach British English. And then I moved to Canada. So I lived in Canada for 2 years. So I got a lot of Canadian accent, which I like. It's my favorite. And I try to keep it as much as I can. I love Canadian accent. And now I live in Australia. So I've been in Australia for almost 2 years as well. And I'm trying not to get an Australian accent, because I find one of the hardest. There are some hardest one, maybe like Scottish and Irish. But compared to Canadian accent, I find Australian accent harder to understand. So I'm trying not to get an Australian accent, but because I live here, sometimes I just get it, right? It's not an option not to get it. If I'm just listening to it, my brain just thinks that's the norm, and then I'll just copy it, even if I'm trying not to. So what happens to my accent is that my accent is a big mix, and of course I still have some of my Brazilian accent that honestly I'm not trying to change. What I do, I use my accent to connect myself to people, because when I'm starting a conversation with someone, they look at me and they are like, oh wow, where is your accent from? And they are saying that not to make fun of me. Sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't like it. Oh my gosh, like they're talking about my accent. And like, they are actually curious about it. They like it. I ask all my native English speakers friends, and they love accents. They are so much like, please don't change your accent. You know, they actually say that like, oh, I really like it. So everyone has an accent, okay? Like every single person has an accent. So even if you think about United States, there are like 50 different states. If you go to different states, you're gonna listen to different accents. In Australia, if you talk to an Australian from Sydney and you talk to another Australian from the countryside, they have different accents. So everyone does, okay? So if you want to improve your listening skills, don't stick to your English lessons, because English from the book, English from the English book, like, you know, like the CD, the lesson, like, oh, conversation lesson, listen and repeat. Guys, this is not real life English, okay? Like, they make it easier. I'm telling you the truth. Like, Santa Claus doesn't exist. I'm telling you right now. That's not real English. Like, they make it easier. They use easier vocabulary. They use more general accent, because it's an English class. Your teacher speaks easier with you because they have to be clear. Like, this is a teacher thing, right? So that's not real life English. It's not. So if you wanna use your English in real life, you have to practice with real life English. So practice different accents, okay? If you move to Canada, if you move to Australia, if you move to Ireland, if you move to England, like London, they have different accents, okay? So if you're planning to move to another country, start watching videos on YouTube about it. And not specifically about English. Start watching videos about their culture, start watching humor videos, start watching TV shows and movies about that country that you're thinking to move to. Because this way, your ears, your listening, is gonna start to get more familiar to the accent from that place. So my tip number 3, my step number 3 for you to improve your listening and understand better people and then feel more confident with your English, it's actually practice with different accents. So watch videos on YouTube, watch TED Talks. I love TED Talks. If you don't know TED Talks, it's TED Talks. And if you go on TED Talks, you can choose the location. So you can go, for example, TED Talks Sydney, TED Talks New York, TED Talks Vancouver, TED Talks Dublin, TED Talks London. And then you start to get more familiar to different accents. Your ears start to get better. And then when you actually have to talk to someone, your brain is gonna get more normal. It's gonna feel like you already knew it. So if you're planning to move to another country, get used to their expressions, get used to their slang as well, get used to their accent. For example, in Australia, they tend to cut words. So they don't say breakfast, they say brekkie. They don't say service station, they say servo, right? So all these type of things, if once you get more familiar to these words and to their accent, this is gonna help you to understand them better, okay? And vocabulary is another thing. So get more familiar to vocabulary. I didn't write it down, but that would be my tip number 4 for you, like my step number 4 that I didn't have it here, but now I have. Get familiar to their vocabulary. Because if you go to different places, if you are in United States, for example, you don't say you're going to United States. You say, I'm going to California. I'm going to New York. I'm going to Texas. I'm going to Chicago. Because the English they speak in Chicago, it's not the same English they speak in Texas. And it's not the same English they speak in California. So if you know you are moving to another country, another city, if you are traveling to another country after all this coronavirus situation, get familiar to their culture, get familiar. We're gonna have the last class is about culture, but get familiar to their vocabulary as well. So my tip number 4, which is my bonus tip for you, is to get familiar to the vocabulary, okay? Barbie Desirable, yeah, that's so Australian. So Barbie, it's not the doll in Australia. Barbie is the barbecue. So it's like, let's have a Barbie Desirable. It's like, Arvo is afternoon, by the way, if you're not living in Australia. Let's have a Barbie Desirable. So, and Arvo is afternoon, but they don't say the letter R because of their accent. So if you're moving to Australia, if you live in Australia, practice Australian accent. It's like I practice Australian accent, but not because I want to speak like them, because I don't, but because I want to understand them. So I study Australian English anyway, just because I want to understand them better. So they say like arvo, because they don't say the R, so like arvo. But then avocado is avo, A-V-O. So they have arvo, but they don't say the R, and they have avo from avocado, like avocado. So it's like, it's very unique. Like Australia is like this unique space in the planet, like down under, right? Forever. It's like an island in the middle of nowhere. That's where we are. So that's where I am today. It's like, yeah, so it's very specific. Okay, it's very, very, very specific. So if you want to improve your listening skills, practice specific vocabulary from the place you are and practice with different accents as well. because that was my problem when I moved to Canada, right? I was so like, yes, Canadian English, but then in Canada, there are people from different countries. So don't practice only with native speakers accent. You can practice, for example, Indian accent. In Australia, there are lots of Asians, Chinese, and everything. So practice the Chinese accent, right? It's a multicultural country. So you should know that you're gonna find people from all over the world. Practice a Spanish speakers accent, because they have a different accent as well. And now, because I've been practicing for 4 years, I can usually guess where the person is from. I can say, for example, if they are a Spanish speaker as their first language, or a French speaker because of their accent, or Italian speaker. So now I can guess, and even with Brazilians, because most of my students are Brazilians, when they are speaking English, I can guess what part of Brazil they are from. Because if they are, for example, from Recife or from Rio, even like Florianopolis, I have a friend from Florianopolis, they say the letter R differently. So, for example, if you're saying that you are, tell me a word with like letter R in the middle. I'm not very good with examples today, but I'll just say the name, for example, Fernanda. Because I'm from São Paulo, I say Fernanda, Fernanda. But depending on where you're from, you'll probably say Fernanda, Fernanda. And because we speak like that in our first language, we're gonna bring the same accent to English. So word, for example, word, you can say word. So it's not word, it's word. So they are, you can definitely guess where the person is from. And then they even have the, yeah, Fernanda is saying, Fernanda. And that's why I like more American English, because I say America and I say California, because I'm from São Paulo. So that's how I speak Portuguese as well. So I would say get like an accent who is close to your accent, and then you just practice. Cool? Awesome, guys. So thank you so much for the session today. So just a recap. Step number 1, active listening. Step number 2, look for content or keywords. Step number 3, practice different accents. And step number 4, bonus, practice more vocabulary specific from where you're going. Okay, so that's our first lesson of our English Confidence Week. Tomorrow, we're gonna talk about reading. So I'm gonna teach you how to read. We think we know how to read, but we actually don't know how to read in English. I'm gonna give you 2 techniques to improve your reading, mainly if you wanna take like a test, like IELTS or PT or whatever. I'll teach you how to read books, how to read quickly, how to find words, and all of that. So I'll see you all tomorrow on the same time, which is 9:17 Sydney time in the morning. Yeah, so just check your time zone, because we are all in different places. So thank you so much. Thanks for participating, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.